Welcome back to the Decent Garage and welcome to my dream shop build. I moved my family out to the country, bought a house that had this pre-existing 40 by 44 3-bay shop on it. Unfortunately, the shop was built on gravel, which isn't gonna do for the work I do. We need concrete underneath it. So in the last video, we jacked the building up 1 foot. We debated whether we should jack it up or dig it out. You can go back and watch that to see how we came to that determination. But we also laid our rebar and our foam. Today we need to lay our PEX for our radiant floor heat. We have concrete coming in 3 days. So we have to lay that PEX, get all the rebar propped up on its seats, get everything cleaned up so that the concrete guys can form this up, and we are going to pour in 3 days. So let's get started. So first we had to decide where we wanted all of our lines for our PEX radiant floor heat to originate and to end. We decided back here in this corner of the shop, I'm gonna put a Connex next to the shop right here and probably punch through and have a wall, so have that Connex have quite a utility space for it. So we're gonna have 8 zones, and I'll talk to you more about the zones and how we determine that later on in the video. But for now, we're gonna have our origination point be right back here. So we'll have all our loops start here. We need to build somewhat of a manifold right here to hold all the lines so that they're all coming up out of the concrete and don't get buried in concrete, so they're useless. So we're gonna make our manifold and start running our first zone, which goes along the back wall and all the way up to the other side on the front. So this PEX is kind of a pain in the butt to unroll and run back to our manifold over here, especially with these base rails in here. So we're going to actually keep the main spool of the PEX over here and basically pull a run back to the manifold, do our whole zone, and then pull the rest back for the return. You'll see what we're doing, but that's kind of what we have to do because we've got these base rails in the way. So we made a stupid mistake and we only ordered 50 of those, and they are awesome. The rebar just snaps down into them, but we need way more than 50. So basically we've used all we have and not even put enough where we need to. I've got more showing up tomorrow, but for now, we're just gonna put 2x4s just to hold the rebar up a little bit, get the PEX tied to it, and then I forgot we need to finish taping our footer for the lift. So tape off all that foam so none of the foam tries to come up when the concrete gets poured. So stupid mistake, but not a big deal. The 2x4s actually do a pretty good job, but we don't want to leave those in the concrete for sure. We have 3 zones completely installed. Now, from the research I did, here's what you should know. The zone should be no less than 200 feet and no more than 300 feet. So what we did last night, my brother and I, we got some graph paper, drew out a 44-foot wide by a 40-foot structure, and we got the square footage, 1,760 square feet. We deduced that we would need 8 zones of about 220 feet each. So we got on the graph paper and just started mapping it out. We had to erase and redo a lot of stuff. But in the end, we got it to fit perfectly. The shortest run is about 213 feet, and the longest run is about 242 feet, which is right in our measurement of tolerance. So we've got 3 installed. We're gonna do the rest of the 5. The first line took us about 45 minutes to install. Then we improved and made our processes a little more efficient, and we got the next 2 zones done in about 45 minutes total. So we're hoping to get the last 5 done in about 2 hours. We'll see if we can do it. So I told you guys that ideally you want between 200 and 300 foot loops. We were in that 220 to 240 range. It's not perfect, but we bought 1,000-foot rolls, which means we should get 4 zones out of each roll. Not zones, but 4 circuits out of each roll. Let me show you our leftover from the first roll. Right there. About 6, 7, maybe 8 feet on a 1,000-foot roll. So we drew it out perfectly, I guess, which I think that means that our circuits were a little bit longer than we planned, because we planned between 213 and 240 something. But if the 1,000-foot roll has 8 feet left over, it means we're closer to that 250-foot mark per circuit. But that's fine. That's exactly what we want. So we're halfway through. 4 more to go. Let's hit it. We've got 2 loops left to go, but this is a perfect example of how having this base rail here in the middle is kind of an inconvenience, because our next loop, we've got to come over here, go under, all the way down, all the way back up on that side of the rail. Then we have to switch back over to this side of the rail, which wouldn't be a huge issue. We could just shove the bundle of tubing right underneath, but we've got our rebar stands, so we can't do that. So just watch what we do, and this is the solution that we've figured out to kind of get creative and get around this little inconvenience. So we've tried to avoid taking the PEX under any base rails, because to anchor the structure down, I'm going to drill and put anchor bolts into the concrete. But if you'll remember, here's this wall. We're going to cut right here, take this whole base rail out all the way up to there. So this line is actually going right under the base rail, but it's okay because that base rail is going to be gone. But everywhere else, we were very careful to not get it right under the base rail, because we don't know where we're going to drill for those anchor bolts. Well, we finished every run, and this is how detailed and, I don't know what you would say, precise we are with materials. We have 10 zip ties out of 1,000 left, and we have about 8 feet of PEX left. So
out of 2,000 feet.
Out of 2,000 feet. So we prepared, we calculated, and we got it spot on. So there you can see our last 2 runs. There's all of our supplies and returns over here. So now what we have to do is actually bring these up here. We're going to connect them all together so we can pressurize the system right now to test for any leaks. And then when we pour the concrete, we're going to pressurize it so that none of the PEX lines get crushed by the weight of the concrete. So if they do, we will know. So that's what we got to do. We are almost done, which is good because concrete comes in 2 days. All right, it's getting dark, but we got the manifold all put up, so we just teed everything together with PEX. We've got our gauge with our little, forget what that's called, to fill it. That's where we'll fill it and we'll empty it. So we're gonna pressurize it and see if it holds. Okay, we've got the air compressor charged up. Do you guys take the cap off?
I did. Oh, there's the pressure going up. It's
a lot of lines to fill with a little tiny compressor. So we're probably going close to 50. And then what we're gonna do is leave it here a couple days till they pour and make sure the pressure doesn't drop. Okay, there's 50 PSI. So this might fluctuate a pound or two with the temperature changes and everything, but we're gonna leave it for a couple days. We'll come back and check on it and make sure it's still holding. I'll probably take a little air out when they pour, bring it down to 30 or so, but it's been sitting there a couple minutes and it's holding. We ordered 30 yards of concrete. That was 3 full trucks, and we also had to order a pump truck to get the concrete all the way into the back of the shop. If you've ever participated in a concrete pour, you know it's fast-paced and very stressful. Well, update, I'm in my truck because we are like half a yard short. So I went to the hardware store, got some Quickcrete, which is crazy because yesterday I talked to the concrete guy and he's like, man, I don't think 28 yards is enough. And he's like, let's get 30 just to be safe. And we got 30 and we're just barely short. So kind of scrambling. Luckily it's really cold outside. I mean, it's probably in the 40s, so it's not setting up very quick. Not a big deal. They'll probably just mix these bags in a wheelbarrow and then we'll finish it up. But it's looking really good. I'm impressed with the work of these guys. The concrete, even though the first truck showed up a little bit late, I was very pleased that they had every truck lined up ready to go, because I've heard horror stories about the first truck finishes and then the next truck doesn't show up for an hour, and so you get these cold joints. And so I was very happy with the concrete company and getting there and taking care of it. So pretty stressful. I've been watching the pressure gauge on the lines. It hasn't changed at all. That's really stressful because the concrete pump, the tube is very heavy and it's just laying on the tubes and it's like jerking back and forth and stressful. Just can't wait for it to be over, but it's looking good so far. So let's get back, let them mix up these bags and then see how it turns out. So here's where we were short. Barely. Looks really good. Whew, what a long day. They literally just left and it is, let me check, 6:45 p.m. So they were here almost 12 hours. The cure was really slow, which is good for the concrete, bad for them, but it turned out excellent. So let me show you the view right now, and then when it's more cured, we'll actually go in and walk on it and see what it looks like inside. Okay, here it is. It is very, very smooth, which is what I told him I wanted. I wanted it as smooth as possible. So it took so long for it to set up. He didn't get to cut it today, so he's gonna come back tomorrow and cut it. So, and then when they pulled the form right here, that little piece kind of broke off, so they filled it in, and I told him don't worry about the finish. Like, the base rail is gonna sit down on there, so not a big deal. But they did a really good job. I'm impressed. Now we got to figure out how to lower the shop down too. Well, we did it. We've got concrete installed in the shop. That was really stressful. If you've ever been around a concrete pour, it's very fast paced. You've got to make sure all your prep was good. There's always things that come up on the fly that you have to fix. But I think we took care of everything. The biggest thing was that issue of having about 6 bags of concrete short, but we took care of that. But it looks really good. It's really smooth, exactly how I wanted it. We're gonna lower the shop down. We're gonna start moving stuff in, starting to make this the new home of the garage, get working on some trucks. So I thank you guys for your support. Thanks for everything you've done for the channel, and we will see you guys in the next one.